Hi, I'm Rachel. Welcome to Life on Purpose. I invite you to join in on this journey to live a life of deep meaning and intention. Welcome, everyone, to the Life on Purpose podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I meet the coolest people at the coolest places, and I am so grateful to introduce you to Dr. Shannon South today. I met her at a conference we were at close to a month ago now.
Wow, yes.
And I know. And we had the opportunity to chat, and I was so grateful to learn about her work. And I know that it helps people live their lives more fully. And I am so excited for you to get to know her and her work a little bit more. So let me tell you about her so that you have some context about her life and where she's coming from. Dr. Shannon D. South, also known as the Joy Doctor. So good. I love it. He is an award-winning therapist, an Amazon best-selling author, and an international trainer and speaker. As an expert in the field of spirituality and healing trauma for over 20 years, she knows how to assist people in finding wholeness and joy naturally. Oh,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Important, huh? Isn't it?
Yes. In 1994, Shannon had a spiritual experience during meditation that healed her debilitating anxiety and depression permanently. Since this transformative experience, Shannon has helped thousands of clients connect to their most loving and joy filled selves. Mm. Shannon is the founder of Ignite Your Life and Business Programs, the What's Your Subconscious Survival Trap quiz, Soul Shine Self Healing Tribe, and the Inner Counselor Certification Program. I am so excited to hear more about those. What amazing work.
Thank you. I'm
She,
so excited to be here. This is a wonderful podcast. I love the idea of life on purpose. I
oh,
mean, it really is how do we organize ourselves in a way to make the best outcome of our
oh,
limited, precious time on this planet? So,
absolutely. I'm so grateful that you're here today. I cannot wait to hear more about you. And
thank
we're going to share all of these resources that you have. You have a free masterclass. And so we're going to share that with everyone. And you have a great variety in how you work with individuals as well as entrepreneurs and have things for them, and now have trainings for others who want to do the same type of work that has been
yes.
transformative to you. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I was blessed with my very first job out of my master's in counseling program with a job at the hospital as a counselor at the large hospital system in Charlotte, North Carolina. And at that time, I got to do trainings and see clients. And I was a nervous Nelly. I'd never done trainings before. I was in my 20s. I was like, no way. And, my boss is like, oh, you got this. You can do it. Just push me right out there. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I really learned how much I enjoyed training people and also seeing clients. So it became, as I moved out of the hospital system and into my own practice, I just continued on with teaching and training and seeing clients. And it's just worked out phenomenally. And as a kid, I loved to write. So I brought that into the mix as well. And I just get to do my passions, talk about life on purpose. I'm very blessed.
that is great. I love it. I love how you are intentionally following where your gifts are.
Thank you.
I want to start back, though,
Yes.
where
Yes.
you talk about your transformational moment because,
Right.
oh man, not everyone is just naturally happy in their lives. And what was that transformation like for you? What was your life like before and after this
Right,
experience?
right. Good question. So, as a kid, I was kind of a nervous child and very friendly, became a real pleaser and very anxious, wired very anxiously. And so I was really really depended a lot on my creativity to get through that. And as I look back, I'm like, wow, thank goodness for my inner creativity and my connection to something higher than me or whatever that is, whatever we want to call that, that saved me. So by the time I got in my 20s, I had a well, by college, actually, I had a severe anxiety disorder. I had panic attacks. I couldn't sleep well. I had stomach problems. I was just a wreck. I didn't want to drive. I was too nervous in the car. I mean, it was getting bad. It was very debilitating. So when I went to see a psychiatrist, and he said to me, this is kind of a funny story. He said, "Lady, you have three diagnoses. You have depression, you have PTSD, and you have anxiety panic disorder." And I'm like, "Oh, sounds bad, you know." So he put me on some medicine. He sent me home, and thank goodness the medicine worked. So I got through my undergrad and I got into grad school, and I was like, I don't like the side effects of these medicines. I want off. So I started learning meditation, and I got in all these different did all this different therapy, and I was very committed to my healing. And if anybody's listening to this, I just want to say, never give up on your healing, because your commitment to your healing is what's going to take you beyond your circumstances. So it's really valuable and very important to stay committed to your healing path, because there's an answer. There is an answer. So never give up. So anyway, I went on and I went to this lady to teach me meditation. And I walked in and she goes, "Stare at this candle. I'll be back in 20 minutes." And I was like, well, that's bizarre. Like, so I'm staring at this stupid candle. I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm kind of mad. I'm paying money for this, you know? And she comes back in 20 minutes and she goes, "Well, how did it go?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never stared at a freaking candle before." And she goes, "Well, don't worry. I want you to just do some deep breathing, stare at that candle, and do this morning and evening for 20 minutes. And she said, "And you'll be better. That'll be $65." So it's really what happened. So I went home. I was mad. I was like, that was a waste of money. Blah. But I wanted to get better so bad. And I did it. I stared at this stupid candle. I made a little altar in my room, and I was getting my master's in counseling. And all of a sudden one day, and I'm not recommending this to anybody now, I started to wean myself off my medications on my own. And I'm sitting in front of this candle, and I'd been off my medicines, and the panic symptoms return. They just kind of, the elephants on the chest. And then like I couldn't breathe. And then I was just feeling all this fear and just sweaty palms. And I just screamed out. I said, "If there's anything out there, please help me. I cannot go on like this any longer."
Wow.
Boy, when I said that, this energy, it was almost like someone opened the curtains or something, just came into my body, and it was peaceful, and it was loving, and it was calm. And I just sat there and I was like, what the heck happened? But I knew something had changed in me. It's like the cells in my body had changed or something. And I couldn't figure out what had happened, but I knew it was good. I knew it was great. So I sat in that peace and I just started crying. And I never had a panic attack after that day. And so then I thought, wow, I need to go on to get more schooling, because this master's in counseling is one level. Clinical, counseling is great. And there's a lot more going on here. There's energy happening that I don't understand. I'd grown up Christian and I didn't have a context for this.
Mhm.
So anyway, I went on to got my doctorate eventually in spiritual psychology, and that was called a peak experience, or some people now call it a spiritually transformative experience, an STE or something like that. And they're available to all of us. We all have them. Sometimes you have, your child is born and you're like, oh, just like your life is never the same, or like you have a loved one die, and it changes the way you see everything. Like the tectonic plates change in your life, right? Or you have a major crisis, and then you heal from that and you change deeply. So these peak experiences, they change us, they change our knowing, they help us recognize the truth about who we are. And then I just went on to teach and train people in that, finding their knowing, finding their truth, and healing beyond their circumstances and their trauma and their anxiety. And, one of the key things as I do now is teach people in the inner counselor process, which is one of the most powerful processes that I've ever learned in my life. And I have a certification program around that. So that's kind of a little summary of how all that went down.
Okay, so I have questions.
Oh, please go for it.
I wanna go back to what you
Mhm.
said. Well, actually, first, I wanna know,
Yes,
so in your processes, do you have people stare at candles for 20 minutes?
I do.
Because it worked?
I do. I'm like,
Okay.
Some people cannot close their eyes when they meditate. It's very
Okay.
nerve-wracking. They have too much ADHD or whatever, right? They just can't. So I have them have their spine straight, and you want to have the candle at eye level because it's, gets the relaxation response going when you have a straight spine. And then you
Okay.
want curious open posture, and you want to have a soft gaze at that candle. She did give me instructions. And then you stare at it. So like I light a candle all the time now, wherever I am, like in my business and wherever I am, and I just light it. And then you just have a soft gaze on this candle, and you bring your attention back to that over and over and over, and you set your timer. And of course, you want your timer to bring you out in a very nurturing, soft way, right? You don't want to jangle your nervous, your nervous system when you come out. But I absolutely prescribe that as a way to learn to meditate and relax and center the self.
Best $65 you ever spent.
Ding!
I love
Isn't
that
that great?
story.
And
That
isn't
is
it funny? I mean, you may have had this experience too. Like sometimes you go in and you think this is stupid, this is not gonna,
yeah.
and something like that works magic. So you just never know with life, right? Sometimes the things we're most resistant to are the things we need to really try. You
Yeah.
know? So it's interesting.
It sounded like it almost pushed you to ask the question. Like it was almost the path to the most painful thing you needed to ask. Like, is anyone out there? Is there something like
Right.
I need the help right now?
Absolutely. Like
And
I
so,
really fully surrendered
yes.
to something besides myself. Like me
Oh,
having to figure it all out, me having to claw my way out of everything, me having to fight and flight and freeze and figure it all out, all the F's, right, that we do.
yeah.
And I think I finally just let go. I just had done everything I need to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to something you said about being committed to
Yes.
the healing process.
Yes.
What would you recommend as people are going through a healing process, as we all are as humans, because we're in
We're
a
all
human
evolving.
experience?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's what we're here to
Yes.
do. Yep.
We're all on a journey. We
Mhm.
never are complete and
Yeah.
done in this
Absolutely
life,
not.
at least. So
That's
we're
right.
all on a healing process at
Yes.
some point. When people get to a point where they do want to give up. Like I've tried so many things. I've tried the therapy, I've tried the medication, and I'm just too broken.
Yes.
Do you have something to offer that where that commitment can maybe be renewed? How would you help
Absolutely.
people push through that?
Absolutely. Well, that's a time when you need support
Hmm.
the most, when you really are at the end of your rope. So whether it's spiritual support, support from another person or being, or really digging deep and being with the self in a way of observing that part of you that feels like it wants to give up. And then, the way that I define healing is you're changing your relationship to that aspect of the self. So the part that says, I'm hopeless, I want to give up, there's nothing that's going to work. That's just a part of us. And if we get call in other parts, right? And if we can't do that internally, then we need to find a person to help us do that, that can bring that, help us do that in our own being and bring that in. That's why I love the inner counselor work so much, is it helps the person find their own empowered self versus them getting it from someone else, right? So, but making sure that they can ignite. Well, there's three questions. Would you like me to share the three questions that
Oh,
I?
please.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's three questions that are great for this, and I heard Sonia Choquette say something similar one time that was like this. You ask yourself, what does my mind say about this? What does my fear say about this? And then what does my knowing say about this? And often the knowing is where there's a glimpse, a crack in the light, where the light can come in. Often the knowing is more of a sensory felt thing. It's like, well, if I kill myself, I might just keep living. And what's the point in
Mhm.
that? And
Mhm.
you know what? Maybe there's more here than I can see. That might be a glimpse they get, right? Or if I give up right now on myself, maybe I just need to rest and that's okay. They talk about rest is a great healer. They put people who have been suicidal for a long time out in the woods in a supportive community, and they learn to rest deeply. And when they learn to rest deeply, their nervous system changes and they become less suicidal. Isn't that cool?
Wow, be still,
Be
right?
still. So there's a lot of ways out of these kind of boxes we get in our psyche. We get in these little boxes where we feel trapped.
Mhm.
And all that is just literally a survival pattern. It's a box we've created to survive, and we're so much more than that.
Okay, so one of the questions that kinda came up in my mind
Yes.
is how do you describe the difference between knowing something in your mind? So you're saying, "Okay, what does my mind think about this?" How do
Yes.
you describe to someone the difference between knowing something in your mind and knowing it?
Knowing, right.
Yes, how would you describe
Knowing
that?
yeah, knowing feels more like a full sensation
Mm,
and like a gentle nudging. It could even be, like I think about how my dog nudges my knee when she wants something. She's like but there's like a nudging, there's like opening, and it's not gonna be harsh or critical or demeaning or any of those things or urgent. Is going to be a different sensory feeling. Our sensory self is more involved. And we just have a sense that this feels like the best decision. And we can talk ourselves into lots of things around that. However, if we're in fear or we're in shame or we're in criticism or we're in those kind of things, that feels sharper. It feels more intense. It feels more like fear, right? And when we're in our mind, it just feels more mental. That's the best way I can describe it, just like mind chatter. If we
mhm,
can really calm down and get in our body, what's that Joseph Campbell saying? The longest journeys from the head to the heart. You
mm.
know, if we can really get down in our heart and in our body and breathe down into our beingness knows something different.
Oh,
So if we can't get grounded, go lay in the grass, right? And then see how you really feel, or lay on the floor even, and ball up. Yoga's about union. Find a way to find a sense of more wholeness. Wrap in a blanket, or find some way to kind of feel a little more settled, and then listen in.
oh.
Yeah.
I want to switch directions because I
Yes.
know that you enjoy healing through dance. I know that you like to
Oh,
play
yes.
volleyball.
Woo.
You like being in nature, so
Yes.
you have incorporated some of the things you're talking about as far as physically, right? Having physical experiences. So can you tell me a little more about how dance specifically, because we had this shared
Yeah.
experience
Yes.
at the retreat of this
So
healing
fun.
dance
Mhm.
modality, and you described you had some experience in that. So I'm really curious about what's your experience with dance and trying to.
Yes. Well, I love Dan Siegel's work. He wrote the book called The Whole Brain Child, but he talks about there's 3 ways we integrate and heal, and one is movement. So dance is a way that I love to move, and my body loves it. It feels great, and it helps me reach different levels of consciousness. So if I'm in like a funky place and then I want to feel lighter and brighter, I can kind of dance my way through the feelings, and I can dance into more of an open heart and into more of a fullness, into more of an expansion, like you were talking about earlier, like going from a constriction to an expansion. That's a sign of healing. That's a sign of that we're growing and healing. So movement is one, and then his other 2 are, social engagement, when we connect others, and then the third one are deeper healing processes, which is kind of what you and I were talking about with the inner counselor or meditation or all these other wonderful things out there that we have. But movement is one of my favorite ones. I mean, I'd love to move, and if I can just go on a brisk walk or dance a couple songs in my den, if I've been sitting too long and just feeling kind of low energy or just not in a good headspace, I can just dance, move around, couple great songs, and I'm feeling very different. So it's a wonderful thing. And singing does it too. Singing opens our heart. So there's so many things, like there's so many ways to shift our energy into a good space. And over time, we begin to rewire new patterns because of that. Because these things become our new normal, and we
Ooh,
become more expanded. We become more full. We become less. We fall in those other ways less. Those anxious ways, those depressed ways, those stinking thinking, that low energy, that funky. whatever we get in, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because when you're trying to break a pattern, sometimes you have to do something extraordinary that you was really out of your
Sure,
comfort zone
sure. Uh-huh, the thing you
to
fear the most sometimes, isn't it?
yeah, to shake that up,
Yes,
right?
it is.
And so if you're uncomfortable with those things like dancing or
Yeah,
singing,
yeah.
that may be the key
You got
to
it. To the expansion, your next level expansion. You know, I used to get kind of frozen sometimes when I would try to sing my own songs. It would come to me. I would try to get them out. And I had a friend one time, we were hiking in the woods, and she patted me on the butt and she goes, "Rip it out, rip it out." Just laughed so hard. And when I was able to open my voice and go, let out what was really what I wanted to sing, boy, just it felt so good. Because there is something about allowing a flow in our system to happen instead of constricting it and holding it back. That's our protective personality. That's not our authentic nature. Authentic nature is more flowing and fluid. Our protective personality is more performing and protective, which is different than this flowing, fluid. And dance helps us get into more fluid, creative, the flow state. And
yeah.
people are happier when they're in the flow state. They've done study after study. One of my mentors, Marcy Shimoff, did a whole movie on it about the happiness and the flow state. She
Oh,
traveled all over the world and found people that if they live in the flow state, they're just happier. So all these things help us get in the flow state more and more and get out of our own way from
wow.
the ways we get stuck, the ways we get lost and pitch a tent over some area and just kind of hang out there for too long.
Mm. Can you describe again? I know we touched on it. Describe again how someone would know if they are healing from a specific situation. I feel like you were saying it's about your relationship to that
Yeah, so
trauma,
their
but can you
relationship
describe
would
that a little
change.
more?
Yes, yes, so let's say, like, I grew up and I had sexual abuse in my childhood, not with a primary parent, thank goodness, but it affected my self-esteem, as you can imagine. It affected my sense of the way I saw myself and how I felt kind of shameful in my body, like afraid to express myself because afraid someone would hurt me if I did, so I became more constricted. And as I healed that, like I wrote poetry and I did deep healing work and I did dancing. And as I kind of came to peace with my body as a beautiful thing and my heart as a beautiful thing, and that I can be free and safe in the world again, as I began to rewire that became the new normal versus the constricted way of being that had helped me survive. And I was grateful for it. It was smart for me to kind of put on some weight and be constricted and pull in because that was creating negative attention from people in a way that I didn't want, right? And so I thought that would save me. And on some way it did. I mean, it helped me the best I knew how. But it did not sustain me. It got in my way of my evolution. So does that make sense? Like we go from constriction to expansion. And I changed my relationship to that trauma. Back to that what you just said. So I
Okay.
wasn't afraid of my body anymore, and I wasn't afraid of self-expression. I was able to feel safe and enjoy self-expression as opposed to feel scared of it or afraid of self-expression. Does that make sense? That's a different relationship with my energy and me speaking out, me sharing, me being open and safe instead of this.
Oh, it is great how much is possible for us. And
Yeah,
that healing is to just be celebrated,
yes, we
just
bloom. We bloom.
celebrated when that happens.
It is. It is. It's all there. Transformation is real. Remember I had that, I don't know if you were, but you were with me. We were doing that death journey where we
Yes.
died and came back. And one of the things that I really felt strongly in that is transformation is real. Transformation is here and transformation is now. It's happening all the time. We just have to be tuned in,
Oh, wow. That it's available and that it's
available.
possible.
It's there. It's like in our soup. It's everywhere.
What a hopeful message to
Wasn't
give.
it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hopeful that it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, how much you might be carrying,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you feel alone or don't know the tools, there is there is so much available.
Oh, it's real, it's here, it's now.
Oh, that's great. I
It
love
is.
that.
Yeah.
I wanna talk a little bit more about these survival traps. If you could give us a little overview of what are some survival traps that
Yeah, so
out
I've
for?
created this free quiz called Your 7 Subconscious Survival Traps. The URL is, I think, 7 survival traps, and anyone's welcome to take it. But what I found is there are these patterns that we would get stuck in, and my clients would get stuck in, and we had to go work on them. And many of them are subconscious, meaning that they're in our body, and we don't even consciously know that they're operating. They're like ways that we've survived. So like I used to be as scared as I was, I became too tough as well. Like I was tough, but really underneath that, I was scared. And so I wasn't aware of the fear. I was more of aware of like, oh, I can do this. I'm like pushing through as opposed to like, really, I was just scared to death. And that's a subconscious trap. One of the survival traps is fear. Like
Mm,
we get lost in fear and owning and admitting the fear. Like I'm afraid to start my business because I'm afraid, what if I fail? I'm afraid to get in a new relationship. What if whatever? I'm afraid to really put myself out there. What if it doesn't go well? It might not. It's okay. Right. I mean, that's just how life is. So fear is one. Drama is another, the drama trap. And that's when we're kind of blaming others for where we are and are feeling victimized or persecuting everybody else or persecuting ourselves. And so we really get in this drama triangle of sorts, and that keeps us stuck. That's really just kind of an add-on. We're not really dealing with the deeper feelings. We're just creating a lot of drama around.
okay.
So that's one people can get stuck in a lot. And then the perfectionist trap is another
Mm.
one where we're always raising the bar. It's never good enough. We never allow ourselves to just rest and celebrate. It's always like this. There's never a settling point, and it's out of balance. It just gets way out of balance. The over pushing, and then the depression and burnout trap is another one. We just, it often comes with a lot of anxiety. We're just so worn out. We get burned out, and it can be depression. Depression can also be due to just lack of meaning. You're like life on purpose, not feeling connected and like we have a life of meaning. Like, what's the point in getting up in the morning? What's the purpose? That's that depression trap. That's what depression would tell you. You don't have anything to offer, blah, blah, blah,
Oh,
and you don't have anything to give. And so that's one of them. And then in my quiz, I give you little ways to get out of them. I give you some ideas on how to move out of them. I wrote them down to make sure because I was trying to remember. I was like, so the fifth one is the black hole or never enough trap, which is like, we're always just input, 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 never enough, never enough, never enough. And workaholic, eating, drinking, sex, whatever. It can be just everything. It's just buying too many courses. It's just never enough.
oh, wow.
And so it's just like this black hole of input, and there's never really any integration and creative output because there's just always one shiny object to the next. I've done that, believe me.
Yeah.
And then the sixth one is confusion or playing small. Like we really,
Okay.
like we don't allow ourselves to feel our power. We play
Mm.
small, we stay confused, but we really do know. If we were really to allow ourselves to deepen in and take a risk, we really do know. But the confusion, we know what we like, or at least go on the journey of finding it. So that confusion keeps us all like, "Arr," and we play small, and then, everybody else, focus on everybody else's whatever, instead of allowing ourselves to really get to know thyself, and we stay confused.
Mhm.
And the last one is called the spiritual bypass trap.
Hmm.
And that's when we don't feel our feelings. We have all these lofty theories. Well, it's because, Mercury's in retrograde is why I'm this way. Or, I mean, nothing wrong with that. But I mean, we get stuck in these theories, right? As opposed to really doing the work, or we're going into the apocalypse or whatever, conspiracy, or we don't feel what's really going on. We get stuck in these thinking bypasses as opposed to really being in our heart and feeling our own journey. So that is a way people get stuck. They are in these kind of theoretical frameworks that are not really taking them to their heart and their truth and allowing, creating um, a deeper way of being.
That even had that awareness of you just going through those,
Mhm.
I feel like they can kind of prick us as to, "Oh, yep, that's true. Oh, yeah, I don't that's not one that's right now."
That one doesn't resonate with me. These do.
Yes.
Usually people have a primary and a secondary one, and then
Okay.
that they're more actively involved in. And
At
sometimes
a
we're in
time,
denial.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we're in total denial because they're subconscious. We just don't really see it. We can't see it.
Yes. So thank you for bringing that to awareness.
Absolutely.
Can you give me an overview of how your work of the inner counselor program came to be?
Sure.
And what is the mission of that program?
So Dr. Ann Nunley was my teacher, and she no longer teaches this process, but it was her heart's work. She learned it from, she took several different modalities and learned it from this guy named Vernon Wolf, who did this thing called the tracking method. He was a psychologist. And then there were many other different modalities she pulled together with her intuition and a lot of other things and created the inner counselor process. And then she spent her whole career clarifying it, getting it to using it and studying it and researching it in ways that helped it work even more effectively. She really got it down to an exact science of what shifts energy and what rewires patterns. And so when I learned it, I thought, oh my gosh. I remember the first time I did it, I remember saying, we really can leave patterns behind. I could feel how, as I went through it, I was going out the other side of that pattern. And I could feel the finality of that pattern. Like I had really updated my system. I had really upgraded my system to a new space at the end of that process. And so we go from like a constricted pattern of one that's kind of pulls us down and calls those your downdrafts, and we move to an updraft, a more expanded pattern, and we clear out in the inner counselor process what's in the way of that move. So like from panic to peace, what's in the way of that? There may be a memory, a time, an issue that created that, right? We're the way we are for a reason. So we get to that. We get to the root of that in the process, and then it allows us to shift that and bring in a new pattern. I totally believe in neuroplasticity. We rewire new patterns all the time. So the inner counselor shows a decrease in depression, a decrease in anxiety, an increase in self-actualization, which is a term that the psychologist Abraham Maslow used years ago for like your highest potential self. And it's worth looking up if you guys haven't looked up self-actualization in a while. It's a great, great, beautiful thing just to read because self-actualized people are more fluid and flowing. And it takes all these things we were talking about, the expansion, the creative, they're more inner directed instead of outer directed. Um, Lots of things, lots of great things. So they feel the sense of belonging and purpose and, all the things that you're here talking about on your podcast. So, and we move up the ladder to self-actualization as we heal in consciousness. So, the inner counselor helps with increasing self-actualization, and then our sense of being connected to something larger than ourselves, or you can call that your wiser self, but some people call that their spiritual self. So, but that's how I got into it. I realized it worked on me. Then I started following Anne around, learning and training with her, and then I just kind of ended up becoming the primary trainer for the university after she stepped away due to some health challenges she was having. And then I've just been teaching and training people at the hospital and for CEUs and counselors and coaches and healthcare providers ever since. So that's how that happened. And then I just put together a certification program that's a 9-month program that is awesome. It helps people integrate this whole thing, the spiritual psychology, um, i- wisdom, the mind body wisdom of that, as well as the inner counselor process. It helps them learn it and use it with people in their practices so that people can heal.
Wow, that is incredible that
Thank you.
you have packaged that in a way to make it accessible for others to use with
Thank you.
those they're working with.
Thank you.
How Now that you have gone through this journey and all of this study and these transformational experiences when I hear you talk about, like, you feel that transformation at, like, the cellular level,
Yes.
and you are no longer that person. Like, you're not even that. You're
No,
not identifying with
I can't even feel it
anything.
anymore. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you even imagine how joyful your life could actually be?
Oh, absolutely not. I had no idea. I mean, I guess I had a sense of it, and when I look back as a kid, I was playing in the yard and had all these or writing poetry, that I had these moments of
Mm.
grand expansion as a child,
Mm.
where you just felt free and alive and like you couldn't wait to get up in the morning. So I did have that, we call it in this work, the magical innocent child archetype, that part is just so free and full of possibility.
Mm.
So I had that, and I had moments of that, and I was out in the world, playing in nature with friends and doing lots of things, and that allowed that my creative spark to not die and to have that relationship, with my inner muse or creativity, which I do believe is our spirit in action, that inspired part of the self. So when we're creative, we're inspired, and when we're in spirit, we're inspired. So I really believe that that is a direct link to our healing path. I had this kid who came in, he was going to do the inner counselor process. And I said, call in your wiser higher self. And he goes, I don't have one of those. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it. I didn't think I did either. And I said, well, you play the guitar, don't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, "Well, where do those notes come from that you're kind of, you're jamming on them? They come down and you like get these notes and you're just playing away." He said, I don't know. And I said, "Do you think that's maybe your creative self? You're like downloading these things. You're like getting these songs, these notes." He goes, "Sure." And I said, "Well, can that be your wiser, higher self, your creative self?" He goes, "Yeah, let's go with that." So we let that kind of guide us and that identify as his higher nature. And it worked fabulously because there was something there assisting him in his music, something
Mm.
there working with him that he'd never identified as that, but he knew it. I mean, he knew he was creative. He just had never really put it in that framework. So, any way that we're creating is a way of healing. They know this in art therapy. They do it with kids all the time. And the inner counselor uses images, symbols. It's like inner art therapy almost, but it's an energy psychology process. So we use energy patterns as well, to shift those. But yeah, I didn't know. I mean, we didn't know. We don't know when we're in the dark spot or in that shadow stuff. We don't know where we're going. Really, we got to get through that. We got to have ways to get through that shadow stuff, and then the light begins to appear. Mother Teresa always said, there is always a light greater than any shadow you will ever encounter. That was one of her famous quotes.
Mm.
Always a light greater than, I mean, she would know, right? She traveled the world and saw everything and anything, suffering beyond upon suffering. And I believe her. I've seen it.
So, how are you working on your happiness right now?
Well, I am in my creative flow. I am creating modules for my inner counselor advanced course, and I'm really enjoying that. I'm having fun. I'm working on a little devotional book called The Inner Counselor. And I'm, out in nature a lot. I love to get out in nature. And, I went biking with some friends yesterday. I meditate. So just lots of things, I do believe that as we feel good, we do feel God, whatever you want to call that, good, orderly direction, so doing things that help us feel good,
Mm.
and that we're inspired to do. And, sometimes if we're in our darkness and our yuck, we are anti the things that actually are helpful, right?
Yes.
So where we need to have ways of being, the movement, the deep healing processes, and the social engagement to get us out and above and beyond so that we can move into more expansion. So, yeah, and then, getting good sleep, I all these really key elements, trying to eat healthy the best I can, I still eat my pizza and all of those yummy things. I just try to keep my nervous system and my brain and my body and my spiritual life as plugged in as I can. And then I follow those inspirations that I get, and it's and trust. One of my favorite quotes by Rumi, the
Mm.
poet Rumi, is, "If every moment, if it's genuinely inside of you, brings you what you need."
Oh, say that again.
Every moment, if it's genuinely inside of you, brings you what you need. So trusting our path. Like, okay, I'm meant to be going to the bank right now and making a deposit instead of being 8,000 places at once, right? Well, I should be over here. I should be over there. I should be over here. Mindfulness, right? Stay in your moment. Or I'm meant to be sitting with you right now. I'm meant to be here. I chose that and it felt right. I'm meant to be and being in the fullness of my moment, the best that I can. That helps everything, makes everything more joyful. In fact, they did studies on that. I got another study on that for you. If you wash the dishes from a place of being fully present as you can, you'll actually enjoy it even more.
Okay. Tip for getting your house cleaner. I love that. I mean,
Because I'm not
making
always wanting to wash those dishes, are you?
no, honest.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So how do you do the dishes from a happier place? What is Dr. Shannon thinking about while she is doing the dishes?
I read this great book by Thich Nhat Hanh years ago. It was called Peace is Every Step, and it was about paying attention to your present moment. And I've been
Mm,
teaching and training mindfulness for years too, and meditating. But literally, like you're not doing 10 things at once.
mm,
You're doing the dishes. You're getting into it. You're like,
yeah,
you're just doing the best you can to be as present
yeah.
as possible. And
Okay.
sometimes I'll put my music on though. I definitely do that.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
dancing with the dishes. But
Oh,
it
yeah.
uplifts the energy of the dishes, right? And then I can be into my song. But if you don't have all, environmental ways to do that, then you can just be as present as possible with the dishes. And it does increase your happiness the more present that you are in your moment. And that takes practice.
Yeah. I have heard, how to of these ideas of, okay, be grateful that you have dishes, be
Mhm,
grateful that you have food that you ate on the dishes,
mhm.
be grateful you have the people in your house who may not do the dishes, but you like them anyway, right? Um, so,
Really.
well, and beyond that, because
Mhm.
gratitude is beautiful and uplifting, but
Sure.
beyond that, even just being aware, I think of the senses that go with that,
Mm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, look at the shine or look at the soap or the feeling, right?
Yes.
How can we be more
Yes.
in our body?
Those are great ideas. You can five sensorize it, right? And that way it helps you get more in your present moment. Yeah,
Mm.
what does that dish look like? Oh, how does it feel? Oh, I remember buying that. That was cool. That was my wedding dish or what, right? So it's like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
really, and allowing the moment to be enough,
Boom. I love that.
because again, we overcomplicate the heck out of life, I think sometimes.
Mm,
And mindfulness helps us simplify. They always said in my teaching, the sacred is in the simple.
the sacred is in the simple.
Just let it be what it is and trust it. Really a spiritual move, isn't it?
I have a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap this up
Sure.
as I've loved our conversation and oh,
Yes.
I love it. So, how how do people make the choice between like the happier choice
Mm,
versus maybe the responsible choice?
mm,
Or do you have any recommendations for that? Like what if there are choices on how to use our time
mhm.
and it's a question between, man, this would really make me happy versus,
Yes.
well, this is what's expected, or how do you decide and feel good about
Yeah.
that?
Well, if we take too big of a risk, right, our nervous system gets very dysregulated. And so that's never helpful, right? So
Okay.
we can't pay the bills. We really can't. It's hard to be creative and meditate. So it's harder. How's that, right? So there is this balance, right, between love and logic,
Mm.
and trusting that. Even Elizabeth Gilbert said that when she came to town and was talking about her one of her books. She was like, "Yeah, if you need that side job waiting tables to write your book, do it." It's like, however, we don't want to get lost in the logic and not take the risks. And I think since we're such a mind forward culture, that we'd probably do that more than the other. So I would suggest people take risks, calculated risks, that they're passionate about, and then give it their all. What's the saying? The passion is the key to your soul. Passion is the pipeline to your soul, right? Like, it's passion is important. And if you're in a dead end, passionless job or situation, um, do your work to bring the insides alive more, right? Do your inner work. Maybe it's your inner place. And if that still doesn't cut it, then maybe time to go or add on other things that help balance that.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Well, one last question is you already spoke a little to this about what choices you're making for your life, but what is something that you are doing today to live your life on purpose?
Oh goodness, what's a good one to share? Well, as living my life on purpose today, I've been right before I got on with you, I was actually meditating and creating those courses
Mm.
for the advanced inner counselor program. And that was so much fun. So much fun. Integrating the material and writing it out and you know, organizing it, because the more I sit with it, the more the ideas come, and then I organize them and write them on paper. I like just regular paper. I don't like all this tablet, and I just like paper. Like I've got paper everywhere, and that maybe is not as tree friendly. Maybe there'll be a better way at some point that I'll shift to. But so that was really exciting for me today. And then I went on a great walk today with my dog, and because it is so pretty out. So those have been some of my inspiring moments in my day today.
Oh, that's beautiful. Dr. Shannon South, I'm so grateful to have met you and thank you for showing up today in such a
Mm.
open
Oh,
way and sharing way and connecting way. I feel like even though we're through technology, I feel like I'm still sitting right next to you at the
same. I know we
table.
had such a good connection at the event, and we were just so connected immediately in our sharing. And you're the same way. You're just so open and sharing and deep in your thinking. And I
Oh,
appreciate that about you.
thank you. And I look forward to more conversations.
Yes.
And I want to just shout out, we'll have a link to all of these for you. But you can set up a call with Dr. Shannon at drshannonsouth.com. There is an upcoming spirit and soul retreat. Woo!
Well,
You wanna
yes.
tell me about that?
Well, my new upcoming, the certification program, there will be a
Okay.
retreat starting in the fall. So yeah, we're looking at October now for the next retreat, and I usually do 2 a year. So those
Okay.
are always super fun, and
Oh,
they start the whole 9-month program out with a blast. We get to do our healing work, we get to do the inner counselor work, and we get to get in there and really support each other in that, and it's pretty awesome.
okay. That's powerful.
And we
So,
dance. We dance.
hey, I love that. I
Yes.
love that. I am embracing that more and more
Yeah.
in my life. So
Yes.
that's you can check that out, theinnercounselor.com.
Yes.
And then you can find out what stands in your way of success and joy at 7, survivaltraps.com. You are just all over, like, providing so much in
Thank you.
many places. So thank you so much for how you show up in the world, and,
Welcome.
please
And I
check
do
out these
have I
links.
do have some free things if people have anxiety on my Dr. Shannon South, just put those up. It's an anxiety, it's called the Wheel of Anxiety, how to get off the wheel of anxiety and onto the wheel of healing and joy for people who have
Mm,
a lot of severe anxiety. So if there's anybody listening that needs more tools to help them with their anxiety, that's a really good resource as well.
thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for your service in this world, and I just appreciate you joining me today. I love our conversation.
You
I'm sending
too.
you
Thank
love
you
and
for
hugs.
having me. I'm so excited. Take good care, hon.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are ready to live your life with greater purpose and intention, check out my free Power of Vision workshop, where you'll uncover your life dream, eliminate doubt, and move forward toward your goals with confidence. Get instant access with the provided link. Your life is too precious to live just by chance or by default. I want you to live your life on purpose. I will see you next time.